Howdy, folks. Welcome to this week's Ag Report. So this week, I wanted to share with you a little bit. I had a pretty neat, unique opportunity about a week or so ago to be a part of a 45-minute conversation on Zoom with a Ukrainian farmer. It was very sobering to hear from firsthand account, no politics, put all that aside, just honest to goodness, farmer to farmer kind of conversation about what things are looking like and what's going on over there. And you may say, well, why is that important to know? Why is it important to hear what's going on over there? Well, Ukraine is one of the world's leading exporter of wheat, of sunflowers, and of corn. So their market, they are kind of nicknamed the breadbasket of Europe. So a lot of their exports go directly into Europe and into Africa. So it makes a really big impact on global food. And you may be hearing about potential food shortfalls and that kind of stuff. So I want to share with you kind of what he told us is going on over there. So he's been farming over there for 20 years. He is, I would call it diversified. So he raises grains like wheat and corn and sunflowers, but he also has a dairy. So they have milk to sell, but then they also do some vegetable crops as well. Now, that diversity is actually helping him. So let me try and, kind of lay this out for you a little bit. A lot of his neighbors are really struggling and on the verge of bankruptcy because they are not really diverse and they raise grain crops for the most part. Okay. So you may see, driving around the country, grain silos and grain elevators, things like that. So typically, a good bit of the crop that a producer raises, a farmer raises, they will sell at harvest because they've got bills to pay and things like that. But a lot of times they will store some up because typically the price is a little bit less at harvest because everybody's got some to sell. It's easy to get. Price goes up a little bit later in the year when it's not harvest time. And so you can get a little bit more money for it by putting it in tanks like that. And so people, farmers do that worldwide. Well, that's what was going on at the time that Russia invaded and the war started. So what has happened now is these farmers have grain in their tanks. A couple things has happened. One, Russia is targeting those grain tanks and blowing them up. So they're losing their crop to sell. Okay. That's what we call old crop, meaning it was from last year. Secondly, if they haven't, blown up the silos, they cannot sell it or ship it. Okay. Because they have bombed the infrastructure. They have bombed and seized the port where the grains get exported. They've also bombed some of the rail lines and things like that where they move it around. So even if they still have that old crop in the silo, they can't do anything with it because they can't get it anywhere to sell it. So that is putting a huge financial burden on those producers. And he said, just like folks, some are blessed differently than others, and some have more of a savings to where they can last a little longer without money. But he said that it is getting very close that producers are going to start going bankrupt because they don't have money to pay their bills because they can't sell their crop, and they don't have money to put in a new crop because, again, they haven't sold their old crop. So that's something real important. Now, for him, I told you he was diversified. And what's helping him last a little longer is the milk they can sell locally. And so they're able to get a little bit of a cash flow from that milk sale. They're also able to sell those vegetables and stuff locally. And so that is giving him some cash flow. Now, he did warn that that is a temporary cash flow, that there's a lot of businesses and things that have closed down since the war started and that. And so even the peoples in the cities are starting to use up their savings and run out of money. So he knows that in the near future, the same thing's going to happen with those folks that are still buying what he has to sell. So the other thing that he was saying, fertilizer is non-existent. You can't purchase it. There's none coming in or anything like that. Fuel is very scarce and very hard to come by. And that this spring during planting, fortunately, he had some storage tanks and he had some stored, but his neighbors ran out of fuel, and it took about 10 days to 2 weeks before they could get more fuel. And so that delayed planting. He was also saying that this new crop that they are looking to plant, we talked about not able to get fertilizer. So what does that mean? That means lower yields, okay? He talked about the lack of fuel and the availability of it. So what they're having to do is they're having to switch their farming practices, okay? And what I mean is typically you're going to till that soil, incorporate that organic matter, make a good seed bed, and then plant. So that means a couple of trips across the field, 3, 4 passes, something like that. He said that with the shortfall in fuel, they're having to just go to no-till and make one pass. And it is what it is. They plant it and they've got no fertilizer to put out on it. So again, no fertilizer is going to lower the yield. No-till is going to lower that yield down. Also, the labor force. He said that, between all of those going to the front lines to fight, and then those that are exiling, maybe the wrong word, but they're leaving, fleeing the country, there is not a ready labor force to even drive the tractors. So again, why they're going to a no-till, less drivers, less labor, that kind of stuff. He also kind of painted a picture of what things look like around there. So he's about 150 miles from the lines, I guess you would say, the fighting. They've had a missile or two kind of hit around the village, but nothing too bad. But he said up where the fighting is, they have targeted dairies, chicken farms, lots of dead animals around. Even those that still have animals living to take care of, they cannot get feed to them. So they are having to turn them loose, just open the gates and let them loose so that they don't starve. And he said that it is really just shocking to see, just animals wandering around everywhere and turned loose. And then of course, the dead animals and carcasses and stuff everywhere. So he said that, that things are really, I guess you would say, kind of coming to a head between running out of financing and money, and availability of fuel and that kind of stuff. It was just really, it was sad, as a producer to hear, he's been farming there 20 years and what is going on, over there. So just wanted to kind of give you, a little bit of an update of what's going on there. He said that, until, and you got to remember, until that infrastructure is built and replaced, until that port on the Black Sea is, stable and no longer occupied by Russia, there's not going to be anything coming or going out of that region very fast. It's going to be very, very slow. And these things don't get built back in a week or 2 weeks or a month or 2 months. You're talking about major construction projects to rebuild. Now, you may have heard on the news about temporary storage money being sent, transfer facilities, money for that being sent. So what that is, there are potential other areas to maybe ship, but they have never been built out. Maybe they have very small ports or small elevators or something like that. So they're talking about, well, maybe we can build these other areas out to try and get some exporting going in a different part of the country. And that may be, and that's well and good. But remember, you're not going to dredge out a port, build, an elevator leg and things like that overnight. That is going to take time. That's a slow process. The other thing you may hear, the rail system, here in America, for the most part, our trains are the same. And so they can go from one track to the other track, coast to coast and back and forth, all that. Well, the Russian and Ukrainian railroad is a different gauge, a different size than the rest of Europe. So even if they were to load onto rail cars and try and ship it up through Poland or something like that, they can't just drive straight through. So that's what those temporary storage funds and things they're talking about, is they have to be able to unload that train, hold that commodity, get another train in there on the Europe rail, and then offload it or load it back onto that. That all takes time, has to be built out. It's nothing that's going to happen very fast. So this is going to be a long drawn out thing, no matter if Ukraine starts pushing the Russians back or we start building out another facility to go. So anyways, just wanted to kind of give you maybe a little backstory, a little glimpse into some of the little tidbits you may be picking up on the news and kind of going, well, what does that really mean? Well, that was firsthand experience that we had. And I appreciate, the opportunity to be able to be a part of that and hear. But again, it was really sad. And it's very, very sobering to hear what they are struggling with and just the great unknown of what is going to be happening. And it's not very far away. 150 miles is not far. And so anyways, pray for them over there. I wanted to give you this, update of kind of what is actually going on over there in a non-political format. It was just honest to goodness conversation. Y'all take care now.